Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Amber Valley series. There are 35 parishes in this beautiful slice of eastern Derbyshire. Here's one for your viewing pleasure. Welcome back to Amber Valley again, folks, where the rain is still throwing it down. It's not very nice out here, but to be fair, there are plenty of places in this one where I could potentially shelter out of the rain if it becomes too much of a problem. You see, over the last few Amber Valley episodes, we've certainly gone very rural, haven't we? Well, this next run is going to be much more urban. The next 4 or 5 are going to be almost, well, one of them definitely is a town. The others will probably feel like towns with how big they are. This one is big enough to be a town, but it's not. This is just a normal civil parish. It's the parish of Aldercar and Langley Mill. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Aldercar and Langley Mill. Alder Marsh and Long Clearing were the mill. I hope you like your urban villages because this next batch will feel like a run of small towns. This one isn't a town, but it could be considered one. Aldercar and Langley Mill are often considered to be two of the most important settlements in the East Midlands, although Langley Mill has always been the larger. It was there back in the late 1700s that its siting in the Erewash Valley would prove to be a major factor in its development. It was where no less than 3 canals, the Erewash, the Cromford and the Nottingham, all joined forces in an area known as Langley Bridge. All of them were used to transport coal, and so you can understand how and why their junction led to the prosperity. From that point onwards, Langley Bridge would keep growing and growing, but when the railways came to town in 1847, several other industries sprang up with it. These included names such as G.R. Turner, Pickersgill and Frost, Lovat's, Vic Hallam and Aristo, the latter of which played a key role in World War II. To most local people, the history of Langley Mill conjures up a picture of industrial activity and little else. That's why it's been claimed many times in the past that it was the most industrialised village in the country. Let's have a walk around and see how much remains today. We start our walk on the edge of an area known as Langley Bridge. This is Elnor Street and it's the site of an old church school built in 1896. Long since closed as such, this building is now used by a company who design and manufacture signs. Elnor Street sits close to a railway line which scythes its way through the village. This line gives its name to this pub, the Railway Tavern on Station Road. Before the railway existed, Langley Bridge was the population centre here, based as it was around the 3 canals that all met each other close to this point. As stated in the intro, Langley Mill was often considered to be the most industrialised village in the UK. There were too many companies to list. Station Road used to be the location of Lovat's Pottery, which made stoneware bottles. This was eventually taken over by Denby Pottery in 1976. Occupying the land directly behind it is an Asda. That used to be Vulcan Ironworks, constructed by the G.R. Turner Company in 1874, which manufactured and repaired railway wagons. As we continue on towards the Cromford Canal, we cross the River Erewash, seen here. I'm not sure what this building is, but it's certainly water related, that's for sure. After passing it, you see a branch of Lidl on the right hand side. That's on Hallam Way, a street named in honour of Vic Hallam's works, which occupied the site. Vic Hallam's was a major manufacturer of wooden and prefabricated buildings. Over the road we pass a garage as the road starts to climb uphill. The industry may have gone, but Langley Bridge isn't short of a few modern businesses. Here's the local branch of KFC, to go with the McDonald's we saw a few moments ago. Langley Bridge Lock marks our arrival at arguably the most important part of the entire parish, and it's all down to the Canal Network. The Erewash Canal, built in 1779, the Cromford Canal, built in 1794, and the Nottingham Canal, built in 1796, all meet here. Together, they used the valley of the River Erewash and brought about the early prosperity of the area through the movement of coal, transporting it southwards towards the industrialised centres of Nottingham and Leicester. Langley Bridge, though, has been a vital crossing point of the River Erewash since medieval times. This is the Cromford Canal's Great Northern Basin, built by William Jessup in 1796, but there can be no denying the importance of all three waterways. Their existence meant that housing and wharves were once plentiful, built as they were around the basin where the three waterways converged. Here's a fun fact for you. This area between the canal basin and the river used to be in Nottinghamshire because the River Erewash used to form the county boundary. That was later moved to align itself with the A610 Langley Mill bypass. After making our way back to the roundabout near Asda, we're off up Cromford Road next. The mill in Langley Mill's name is actually a reference to a watermill. As far as I can tell, Langley Mill has never had a windmill. Despite that, windmills can be seen around the village in various places. I suspect this is because Lovett's Pottery used to use a windmill mark on the base of their products. Cromford Road's standout building is up next, St George's Court, built in 1915. Part of this building houses Aldercar and Langley Mill Parish Council. Over the road is the depot of logistics company D&D Transport, ideally sited so close to the M1. Next we go up Queen Street, away from the industrial area, as we start to explore some of the side streets and facilities within the heart of suburbia. At the end of Queen Street we come to a playing field, complete with a few bits and bobs like a playground, a multi-use games area and plenty of open green space. This is also the location of a sports club, the Aldercar and Langley Mill Amateur Boxing Club no less, based in this white building right here. Crossing the park brings us to Argyle Street next as we make our way back to Cromford Road. Until the 1950s and 60s, Cromford Road and Station Road were prone to flooding, not just from the Erewash, but also from a second watercourse, Bailey Brook. This was a major problem until work was carried out to alleviate the issue. One of the worst known cases was in 1932. I've linked below a website with some great images from those days. Next, we find ourselves overlooking the railway line. We're about to enter Aldercar, and our first landmark is its church. Dedicated to St John, Aldercar's church originated as a chapel of ease to Langley Mill. It was built in 1871 in the decorated style by Stevens and Robinson. This was later enlarged in the 1920s by Naylor and Sale. Its east window was designed by a W. Ramsey. Ironically, even though it was a chapel of ease, Aldercar's church is actually older than the one we're yet to see in Langley Mill. I'd describe St John's as a cute little building. This has the local war memorial within its grounds. This has 30 names on it in total, 22 from World War I and 8 from World War II. After the church, I opted to follow Cromford Road a little further in order to reach my next landmark via a short footpath. This isn't anything special, it's a hill and not a shallow one, with mainly modern housing. That means I can throw in a bit about the name of the place, Aldercar. Aldercar literally means alder marsh. Alder is a reference to the type of tree, whilst car is a Scandinavian term for a marsh covered with brushwood. Cars are common in Lincolnshire, but it's somewhat unusual to find a car this far to the west in Derbyshire. Next, it's a high school. With approximately 600 students, Aldercar High School is one of the largest secondary schools in Amber Valley. It opened in 1955, originally as a secondary modern school, before later becoming Hena Aldercar Comprehensive. For a time, it was named Aldercar Community Language College to reflect its specialist status. In 2009, it gained the Phoenix Centre sixth form building, and every Saturday, the school hosts the Pauline Quirk Academy of Performing Arts, one of 200 such academies across the UK. This next section sees us cross another housing estate, this time Greenfields, before making our way onto a second park, Aldercar Recreation Ground. This has recently had an upgrade to its play area and recreational space. A total of £118,000 was invested into the park by Amber Valley Borough Council in 2021, which saw the addition of a new toddlers playground. It was one of 26 parks across the borough which were improved, a venture that cost £526,000 in total. After passing through the park, we've made our way to Upper Dunstead Road. If you look to your left along here, there's a series of side roads. These, like George Street and Thompson Street, all lead to North Street, where the Aristo Factory was once located. Long since gone and replaced with modern housing, Aristo made silk stockings. During World War II, they became crucial for the military because they started making parachutes and inflatable dinghies. The factory was so important that it became a target for German bombers. We've now reached the end of Lower Dunstead Road and we're at the CoOp, and this used to be a pub. When it was pulling pints, this was known as the Horse and Jockey. It closed as a pub in 2015 and reopened as the shop it is today a year later. It stands at a busy traffic-lighted junction, and this road will take us back into Langley Mill. It's hard to know where Aldercar ends and Langley Mill begins. What with the westward expansion of the latter thanks to the canals and later the railways, Aldercar and Langley Mill is effectively all one place now, and it's a place which has a lot of these speed cameras. Be careful, folks. The first reference to Langley Mill again along here comes in the form of its cricket club, another landmark which uses the windmill logo. The club were formed in 1870 and currently has 4 active teams playing across a number of local and regional leagues. Bang next to the club is the Langley Business Park, where county scales are located. Established in 1983, they make weighing scales of all kinds, including the type you often see in supermarkets or on shop counters. You've probably even used one from here yourself. Next, we have the Baptist Church, established in 1839. It originally occupied a cottage close by, which was pulled down in 1918 after being condemned. Right outside the gates, we have a bus stop. Langley Mill is served by 2 buses, the Rainbow 1 between Nottingham and Ripley, and the 33 between Derby and Mansfield. Another pub next. This is the Inn in the Middle, a large, spacious roadside pub with an island-type bar. 2 years ago, this was earmarked to be turned into flats by a company based in Swadlincote. It seems, though, those plans never got the green light. St Andrew's Church stands opposite. This one's made of stone with green slate roofs and stone ridge tiles. It consists of a nave, a south aisle, a north porch, north and south transepts, a chancel, and a short stumpy tower at the crossing. This was built between 1911 and 1913 by J.S. Brocklesby. Religious services were originally held in a room above a builder's workshop on Elnor Street. When that became too small, a temporary iron church was built on the corner of Elnor Street in 1895. When that became too small, the building of St Andrew's Church eventually began. Around the back is a small hall of some description, clearly built much later than the church itself. If you turn around and look back here, you can see what used to be the Ritz Cinema, which opened in the late 1930s and closed in 1957. It was later occupied by Slater's glass manufacturers. Speaking of industry again, the path from the church connects us to Amber Drive, a modern industrial park south of the A608. This is full of smaller industrial units, a world away from the large heavy industries of times past, and frankly, it's not as interesting really. The end of the road leads us onto a path that passes through an area of scrubland before running under the railway line. The railways came to Langley Mill in 1847, and it's fair to say they revolutionised this part of Derbyshire. Whilst Langley Bridge was doing okay for itself around the canals, the railways effectively trebled the population, bringing with it the industries we've been talking about as we've walked around. We're now emerging onto Lime Avenue, and this will take us back towards Elnor Street, where we began about an hour and a half ago. Lastly, let's follow the railway line towards the Langley Mill railway station, built with the line in 1847. In doing so, we pass these fabulous 3-storey houses that back onto Elnor Street. I wonder what these were originally built for. Langley Mill once had 2 stations, but the second one was short-lived. It was added by the Midland Railway in 1895, but it was never profitable and closed in 1926. The current station was closed under the Beeching Acts in 1967, but British Rail reopened it in 1986. To get to it, you have to walk up a set of steps between these railway bridges. Okay, just one job left to do here in Aldercar and Langley Mill, and that's leave one of these cards on the parish notice board. I did see a parish notice board earlier, but it was raining really heavily at the time, and I thought it was best just to wait out and see if it stopped. Thankfully, it slowed down, so here we can do it. That will do nicely. There we go. Right, KFC, McDonald's, anybody? I think I need it after that. Here's a little bit about Aldercar Hall, which no longer exists. It was a house built in 1688, and it stood to the north of Aldercar on an ancient trackway to Codnor Castle. It was once the home of a wealthy industrialist, Francis Beresford Wright, an iron and coal proprietor of the Pottery Company. It was in his possession in 1881, and despite improving it, he lost interest in it very quickly, choosing to move to Wootton Court in Warwickshire by 1882. By 1888, it was being leased or rented to Frank Adams as a boys' preparatory school. The school remained there until 1891 before relocating, and you already know where to, Wellingham Hall in North Kesteven. By 1898, Aldercar Hall was once again a home, this time in the possession of Wright's son, Arthur, who remained there until 1927. No visible traces remain now. Like so many houses, it was demolished in the 1960s as it was seen to be surplus to requirement and too near the expanding industrialisation of Heanor and Langley Mill. Our last job is to drive along the A610, known as the Langley Mill bypass, as we make our way towards the next one. Costing £2.5 million and opening in 1983, the bypass runs through the hamlet of Wood Lincoln. As a settlement, this has never been anything massive, it's just a collection of houses on either side of the road and a few isolated buildings up some country lanes to the north. Major roads are nothing new here. Before the canals, this part of Derbyshire was covered in turnpikes. The Mansfield to Derby Turnpike, built in 1764, passed through Heanor and Smalley, whilst the Cromford Turnpike, built in 1766, came through Codnor, Wood Lincoln and Aldercar. It's the latter of those two which would be the basis for the modern A610. The two turnpikes met each other, where else but at Langley Mill. It really was the centre of transportation. See you later. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.